Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, entitled Scheduled Incarnations. Text number 3. Yagye chakardama grihe dvijadeva hutyam Stribhi samam navabhiratma gatim svamatre Uche yayatma shamalam gunasanga pamkam Asmin vidhuya kapilasya gatim prapede Yagye took birth. Cha also. Kardama, the Prajapati named Kardama. Grihe, in the house of. Dvija, or Brahmana. Devahutyam, in the womb of Devahuti. Stribhi, by women. Samam, accompanied by. Navabhi, by 9. Atmagatim, spiritual realization. Swamatre, unto his own mother. Uche, uttered. Yaya, by which. Atma Samalam, coverings of the spirit soul. Gunasanga, associated with the modes of nature. Pankam, mud. Asmin, this very life. Vidhuya, being washed off. Kapilasya, of Lord Kapila. Gatim, liberation. Prapede, achieved. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Lord then appeared as the Kapila incarnation, being the son of the Prajapati Brahmana Kardama and his wife Devahuti, along with 9 other women, his sisters. He spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which, in that very lifetime, she became fully cleansed of the mud of material modes, and thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila. Purport. The instructions of Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti are fully described in the 3rd canto, chapters 25 to 32 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and anyone who follows the instructions can achieve the same liberation obtained by Devahuti. The Lord spoke Bhagavad Gita, and thereby Arjuna achieved self-realization, and even today anyone who follows the path of Arjuna can also attain the same benefit as Sri Arjuna. The scriptures are meant for this purpose. Foolish, unintelligent persons make their own interpretations by imagination and thus mislead their followers, causing them to remain in the dungeon of material existence. However, simply by following the instructions imparted by Lord Krishna or Lord Kapila, one can obtain the highest benefit even today. The word Atma Gatim is significant in the sense of perfect knowledge of the Supreme. One should not be satisfied simply by knowing the qualitative equality of the Lord and the living being. One should know the Lord as much as can be known by our limited knowledge. It is impossible for the Lord to be known perfectly as He is, even by such liberated persons as Shiva or Brahma, so what to speak of other demigods or men in this world? Still, by following the principles of the great devotees and the instructions available in the scriptures, one can know to a considerable extent the features of the Lord. His Lordship, Kapila, the incarnation of the Lord, instructed his mother fully about the personal form of the Lord, and thereby she realized the personal form of the Lord and was able to achieve a place in the Vaikuntha Loka where Lord Kapila predominates. Every incarnation of the Lord has his own abode in the spiritual sky. Therefore, Lord Kapila also has his separate Vaikuntha planet. The spiritual sky is not void. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and in each of them the Lord, by his innumerable expansions, predominates, and the pure devotees who are there also live in the same style as the Lord and his eternal associates. When the Lord descends personally or by his personal plenary expansions, such incarnations are called Amsha, Kala, Guna, Yuga, and Manvantara incarnations. And when the Lord's associates descend by the order of the Lord, such incarnations are called Shakti-Avesh incarnations. But in all cases, all the incarnations are supported by the invulnerable statements of the authorized scriptures, and not by any imagination of some self-interested propagandist. Such incarnations of the Lord in either of the above categories always declare the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the ultimate truth. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is just a process of negation of the form of the Lord from the mundane conception of the Supreme Truth. The living entities, by their very constitution, are spiritually as good as the Lord, and the only difference between them is that the Lord is always supreme and pure, without contamination by the modes of material nature, whereas the living entities are apt to be contaminated by association with the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. This contamination by the material modes can be washed off completely by knowledge, renunciation, and devotional service. Devotional service to the Lord is the ultimate issue, and therefore those who are directly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord not only acquire the necessary knowledge in spiritual science, but also attain detachment from material connection, and are thus promoted to the kingdom of God by complete liberation, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate satgunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Even in the non-liberated stage, a living entity can be directly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, or his plenary expansions like Rama and Narasimha. Thus, with the proportionate improvement of such transcendental devotional service, the devotee makes definite progress toward Brahmagatim or Atmagatim, and ultimately attains Kapilasya Gatim, or the abode of the Lord, without difficulty. The antiseptic potency of devotional service to the Lord is so great that it can neutralize the material infection even in the present life of a devotee. A devotee does not need to wait for his next birth for complete liberation. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giradhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's quite an amazing purport and translation, as usual, here by Srila Prabhupada. And I'd like you all to bless me that I can say something to complement that. So, when we read Srila Prabhupada's purports, we find that there's so much Srila Prabhupada could talk about, but what, and to some degree, you know, there's different topics that are discussed, so many different topics in all of the Vedic scriptures. What to speak of the incarnations of the Lord. There's so many pastimes and so much to say about Lord Kapila or any of the scheduled incarnations of the Lord. But it's quite interesting what Prabhupada chooses to emphasize, you know, what generally Srila Prabhupada tends to emphasize that which is the most essential thing to take away from these descriptions of the Lord and His incarnations, because we find that the message that Kapila Dev explained to his mother. So here we're hearing about Kapila, the incarnation of the Lord. He's the son of Kardama and the son of Devahuti. And we find that what Kapila Dev has explained, he's famous for explaining Sankhya philosophy, which is explained also in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about Sankhya, and he explains the process of Sankhya, which is being non-different to the process of bhakti, in the sense that the goal that is achieved is the same as the process of bhakti. And we find, just like Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing in the first paragraph here, that one who follows Kapila Dev, just like Devahuti was instructed in devotional service by her son Kapila, the incarnation, and she achieved the path of liberation, which is described as Kapilasya Gatim, the path of Kapila. She achieved that path of Kapila, and thus she achieved the transcendental realm of the Lord, liberation, cleansed of the mud of material modes, and thus achieved liberation. And so Srila Prabhupada explains in the beginning of the purport that one, even today, can achieve the same goal just by following the path of Arjuna or the path of Kapila Dev given in the scriptures. And it's the particular way, the particular mood or where we approach these instructions, the way we try to imbibe these instructions without without trying to interpret them on our own accord. That's Srila Prabhupada's emphasis here, straight in the beginning, that we can follow the path of the Lord, and even in this very lifetime we can attain liberation, attain the liberated state. A devotee does not need to wait for the next life to complete the process of liberation. We can achieve it in this life just by following with the right mood, with accepting that information without interpretation, imagination. And it's quite significant here that Prabhupada explains that the people who do so, foolish, unintelligent persons, make their own interpretations by imagination and thus mislead their followers. So it's by interpreting and speculating on the nature of these processes, the process of liberation that is so vastly explained in the scriptures. There's Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is most in a very concise and succinct way, he's explained all the different paths and the goal of all of these paths, and how these paths apply maybe to different people, but they have the same goal and therefore are not necessarily different. But Krishna gives his personal recommendation that we take the easiest path, the bhakti path, and he explains that again and again, just like the verse we've heard here. Mam shayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That Prabhupada, Krishna recommends again and again to follow bhakti yoga. He specifically states bhakti yoga, and we can attain that liberated state by which all these other methods are achieved. So it's interesting that Prabhupada explains that by interpreting, by speculating on these processes, we're not just fooling ourselves, but we're fooling those people who we preach to, because obviously we're going to be sharing our ideas. We find that a lot, that people, when they have some particular interpretation of spirituality, what is the nature of the soul, what is the nature of life and consciousness, then they're going to be sharing that with others, and so it's basically misleading people. It's a way of misleading people, because we're not necessarily sure of the implications of what we're talking about. That we can by studying these explanations of Krishna, which have been revealed in disciplic succession, just like in the previous verse on Friday, we're hearing that any authorized incarnation has to be explicitly described in the scriptures, even to the point of the name of their parents, the name of the village that they appear in. It's all there. There's no need to interpret. And if anybody's claiming to be an incarnation, or claiming to be, the ultimate authority on spirituality, then unless they can, prove that their village, their parents' name, everything is described in the scriptures. And these scriptures, they can give us full confidence through the process of receiving them by the spiritual master, the disciplic succession. We can have full confidence in these scriptures because they explain all the different processes, and we can actually begin to perceive how all these different ideas and interpretations that people come up with somehow or other fit into the explanations that are here. That's why we're constantly hearing about the conceptions of the Mayavadis. It's something that's it's quite relevant. Lord Kapila, he's famous for explaining the Sankhya philosophy, Sankhya Yoga. So Sankhya Yoga, it means an analytical process to analyze the makeup of the material existence, and to analyze the origin of life, the origin of consciousness, and that analytical process is a process of acquiring knowledge. There's different ways of acquiring knowledge, and the recommended process is to approach a learned spiritual master and inquire from them. That's what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. But there's a tendency in some people to try to sort of speculate, to analyze the material nature, analyze the world, and try to come to a conclusion of what is the origin of everything, what is the origin of life, the origin of the consciousness. And so that tendency is there in some people, and so generally that's a process of acquiring knowledge. Some people want to attain knowledge. Most of us aren't capable of doing that. We can't manipulate our mind so thoroughly that we can truly analyze the origin of life, but there are sections of society, people, jnanis, who try to follow that path. And so generally those people are interested in the impersonal idea of the absolute truth. Generally they're trying to achieve knowledge of Brahma, which is explained as being part of the full realization, but generally the people who are interested in manipulating their mind to speculate on the nature of the world and try to come to a conclusion on their own accord without accepting necessarily the conclusion of the Vaishnavas or the scriptures, then Prabhupada really succinctly explains it here, what they're trying to achieve. He says, the impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is just a process of negation of the form of the Lord from the mundane conception of the Supreme Truth. So with our mundane mind, mundane intelligence and senses, we're trying to conceive the Supreme Truth. And the supreme truth is there. It's revealed in the scriptures by the authorized bona fide acharyas. The supreme truth is there. It's the supreme Lord, the form of the Lord. And when we try to negate that form and conceive the impersonal, the absolute, the oneness, and try to establish through philosophy and by manipulating the conclusion of the scriptures, or explaining some idea, some imaginary sort of philosophy that establishes that impersonal oneness and absoluteness of everything as the supreme truth, then it's a process of negation where the supreme truth is there, but where we try to negate it. And so that's quite a succinct description. And the people, the tendency towards that is generally accepted by people who are attracted by that process of jnana yoga. And so Kapila incarnates to give some bona fide process by which the people who are attracted to that, which is not necessarily most of us, but the people who are attracted to that process, they can have a bona fide process, Sankhya yoga, by which they can truly analyze the nature of the material energy and its relationship ultimately to the Supreme Lord. But what we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Dev really explains to his mother Devahuti this process in a way that really sort of emphasizes devotional service and the need to actually follow that path requires devotion. It can't be separate from devotion, otherwise we're going to again achieve the impersonal conception. So we can talk about Kapila and talk about the process of Sankhya Yoga and the process of acquiring knowledge through those means of speculation, but separate, and Krishna explains this in Bhagavad Gita, that there is actually no such thing separately from devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada in this purport is really emphasizing that devotional service is the true process, and especially for those of us in this day and age who aren't capable of following these other processes. And the other significant point being made here is that by this devotional service process one can achieve the goal, the complete liberation, even in this life. And we can begin to see that, in our association with devotees, and also in our own, self-reflection. We can see that we start to. It says here, thus with the proportionate improvement of such transcendental devotional service, the devotee makes definite progress towards Brahmagatim, Atmagatim, ultimately kapilasya gatim, that the antiseptic potency of devotional service to the Lord is so great that it can neutralize the material infection even in the present life of a devotee. So the process can make us really confident, hearing from the acharyas, hearing from the scriptures, hearing from the guru. We can start to directly perceive this process. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam, Pratyaksavagamam Dharmyam, Susukam Karutamavyayam. It's a joyful process. It's the king of knowledge. It's this most secret knowledge, and it's joyfully performed, and it's directly perceived. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam, that we can directly perceive the truth. And so therefore, by achieving devotional service, by following that path, Kapilasya Gatim, then Atma Gatim, the path of self-realization. So it's directly perceived, and we can become fully confident, and these other processes aren't necessary. Krishna again and again in Bhagavad Gita is explaining, just take you've got all these different ways and means of achieving the goal, but here's my personal recommendation: take it if you want it. It's there, and it's joyful, it's blissful, and it's very, very secret. We want to have knowledge. Some of us might be inclined towards knowledge and understanding the origin of everything, but Krishna says this is Raja Guhyam, it's the most secret knowledge, and that's because it's quite a rare thing in this world. It's the essence of knowledge, the essence of love. So one should not be satisfied simply by knowing the qualitative equality of the Lord and the living being. One should know the Lord as much as can be known by our limited knowledge. So our knowledge is limited, and anybody can begin to understand that basic foundation of the philosophy, that there's a qualitative non-difference that we have, the soul and the Supreme Soul, because we emanate from that Supreme Soul. We're part of His energies, but we can't stay there, and a lot of all these processes of philosophy and speculation and interpretation, they're trying to get to that stage of emphasizing that oneness as the ultimate truth, but the devotees are saying, well, let's just start there. Yes, there's oneness. We're gonna start there, and then we can found. That's the foundation for how we interact with the Lord. But there's further to go. We'll never truly understand with our limited capacity, the unlimited nature of the Lord. But by beginning there, and the implications that come along with that qualitative oneness with the Lord, which means that we're part of the Lord. So we have a relationship, but then there's further to go, that we have an eternal identity as the servant of the Lord, and the Lord has His eternal spiritual form. So that's the path, Kapilasya Gatim. We follow that path of devotional service to make progress. and so maybe somebody has something to add to that, or any questions? Yep, good.
Just thinking about this concept, this Samkhya yoga in comparison to bhakti. It's a really important point in the, I think it's 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yep.
And just kind of summing up from what you've been sharing, this nice concept that like the Samkhya is, we're trying to understand the nature of reality through it, like compartmentalizes everything. Like there's the mind, senses, ego, the material elements like earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then there's the total material energy, and then from there finally you get to the Purusha. There's the material energy, everything we can observe, which is categorized in all these details, and then there's the Purusha. So and that's the end goal of Sankhya Yoga, is after analyzing everything, coming to the Purusha. But then Bhakti is, you just accept the Purusha from the beginning, and then you start worshipping the Purusha.
Yeah.
And cultivating a loving relationship with the Purusha. So within that, you get the understanding of the material energy quite easily.
Yeah.
Also, and then you also develop your relationship with the Purusha from the very beginning. You don't have to analyze everything.
That's right, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, there's a similar concept in science. You can look at science. There's two types of science. There's reductionist science and holistic science. So this is sort of a philosophy that you can study something and try to analyze it in its reduced, each, as you said, compartmentalize every little aspect that makes up a whole, and try to analyze that way. And that we can call reductionist science, to reduce it all into its parts and analyze each little part. Or there's holistic science, where we can view the thing as a whole, and then then it's sort of, by understanding its function as a whole, then you can get an insight into how each part relates to the whole. So that's dharma. We could say how the part interacts with the whole, or how it should interact with the whole. So yeah, that's and that ultimately is true of bhakti, that we can take Krishna's recommendation, worship the Supreme Lord, and then automatically gradually, as it says here, by devotional service, knowledge and renunciation automatically achieved. So that's the recommended path.
I was convinced that Kapila Dev, the incarnation of Krishna, Sankhya philosophy accept the Purusha from the very beginning. You don't go to the Purusha through analytical study, but you combine Bhakti with Astanga and then go accept the Purusha from the very beginning. That was my understanding. I'm not sure. Because there are two types of Sankhya, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And one of the questions I wanted to ask is, when you were talking about how Kapila Dev gave the Dhyana system, which is authorized, So when Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not sure which chapter, that Gyanis ultimately come to me. He says something like that.
Yeah, ultimately. So that's the point, is that it can take many births. But what's the point of that when you can just start, you know, as you say, start with the goal, and then all the everything else is filled in. Start with the fruit, and yeah. But yeah, you're right. There's the atheistic Kapila Dev who explained it the other way around. So that's why Krishna appears in these incarnations like Kapila Dev, so that the tendency that some people have towards that atheistic process, there's the same process, but you know, the bona fide process, which is which can, you know, it contains the whole same perspective and analytical understanding, but it starts with Krishna.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.